What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be upgrading my gaming PC. I'm going to be making the switch over from Intel to AMD. I know I'm a little bit late to the party, but at least I made it over finally. I was able to get my hands on a 5900X from my local micro center, so that's awesome. Now the home for the 5900X is going to be the ASUS ROG Strix X570-E gaming motherboard. Now what I'm going to do in today's video is get it unboxed, kind of go through everything, and then I'm going to install the CPU, the RAM, and my M.2 drive. So then once I get it all set up, I'm going to let you guys know whether or not this board needed a BIOS update for the Ryzen 5000 series CPUs. Let's jump into it. So before we get started with this upgrade, if you're new to the channel, my name is Jason. On this channel, I do a lot of computer builds, software tutorials, tech reviews, pretty much anything tech related. So if that seems like something that interests you after this video, go ahead and check out the rest of my channel and then subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of my future content. Now I have built a Ryzen machine before, several times actually, but for the most part it's been for other people. Now a few months back I built a machine for my son so he could do some streaming and gaming and stuff like that. With the performance of the 5900X, I just could not pass that up. It seems like such a good chip and it's going to last me for a very long time. Now I've been able to use my 9900K obviously for the past 2 or 3 years and it's done me very well. It only lacks a little bit when it comes to editing. So now that I'm getting more into YouTube and having to edit my own videos, the 9900K does seem to struggle with that a little bit. Now the overall process of this upgrade is probably going to take me 2 to 3 videos. That just depends on what all I have to do to get this build set up and get it running. A lot of websites are already saying that these latest boards, the X570 boards, are already coming with the latest BIOS so that you can drop in the 5000 series CPU and it should run just fine. Now along with the 5900X, I also went ahead and bought 32 gigs of RAM at 3600 megahertz, and I have my 2080 Super from last year, so that's about a year old now. I bought that about a year ago. Now I do have plans to upgrade eventually to a 6800 or a 6800 XT and make this a total AMD build. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this. We're gonna get it unboxed, get everything set up, and see if it's Ryzen 5000 ready. Here we go. Let's jump into the unboxing. Now I'm sure you guys have seen this unboxing before. This board's been out a while, but just in case you haven't, this is the Wi-Fi adapter here. I'm pretty sure that's what's in that box. We'll jump back into it here in a minute once I get everything else out of the box. We do have the motherboard, and again, we'll come back to that in a second. I just want to make sure we get everything else out of the box. Let's see. So we do have the motherboard manual. Some of you guys may need to use that as far as, you know, hooking up fans or, you know, the headers or whatever, trying to decide what cables go where. So if you have questions about how to connect certain things to your motherboard or settings to use or whatever, you can usually find that right here in the manual. So that is there. You do get cable mod. So you get a little coupon there for cable mod if you want to upgrade your gear. So they give you some stickers. So as far as cables go, we do have a thermal sensor. You do get some zip ties. Here we have some screws. I'm not really sure what those are for yet. Some standoffs and some screws. I'll have to come back to that in a minute. We do have some of the RGB connections. So for your RGB headers, we have another RGB header. So that's there. Probably one for addressable and then one for the other. And then you have your SATA cables, which is very nice. I'm so glad that they keep, including these in the box. A lot of motherboards you're seeing nowadays do not do that. And then you do have a door hanger. So, you know, if you want to use that, mine just goes on my shelf. I don't really use these, but it's really nice that they included anyway. So let's go back to this. So inside here, just want to make sure I'm not leaving anything out. Yes, we have your antenna for the Wi-Fi adapter. Bring over the motherboard. Now I know this is a high-end motherboard and I probably could have gotten by with a B550, and mostly I almost did go B550 just because of the cooling fan. I am a little bit nervous about the cooling fan and how long it will last. I'm not really sure if you can even upgrade that or replace it if you need to. Hopefully it lasts quite a while. I have watched other videos on this board, and when it comes to, you know, using the M.2 drive, you actually have to take off this screw, and then there's these 2 screws here. You basically have to take off this entire shroud, and then there's a screw underneath right here that is not visible that you have to take loose so that you can install the M.2 drive. But basically, this whole board is decked out. I mean, you have all of the features that you need. I'm going to point out some of the more obvious things, and then the rest of it you know, you guys can find out when you buy the board on your own, obviously. So you've got 4 slots for your memory. You do have an 8-pin and then an additional 4-pin for your CPU. So that's gonna be something I'm gonna have to look at. I may have to get some cables out of my box for my power supply to make sure that that is all connected properly. What made me swap out was that right there. So I do have the USB Type-C now for my case. I've got a lot of USB Type-C devices now, so that's gonna be awesome. This whole board has a real nice color scheme to it. I do like the way it's designed. This does have a mesh appearance to it, but it's not mesh whatsoever, it's plastic. I will briefly cover the basically the headers across the bottom. So you do have your HD audio here. So you do have your diagnostic display. So if you have any type of issue, you can go ahead and check that number and check your manual and it will give you what is wrong. You do have your USB headers, a USB 3.0 header here. And then you have, like I said, the 3 fan headers. You do have your addressable and non-addressable RGB headers, and then right here across this part is where you'll connect all of your front panel connectors, so your power button, reset switch. What I'm going to do first, as far as getting all this set up, is remove the M.2 SSD and show you guys how to install it over here. Now this is pretty simple. You just got to remove these 2 screws, pop it out. But over here it's a little bit different. We got these 2 screws, we got a screw here, and then we do have to remove this whole section to access the screw that's underneath. So we'll go ahead and remove this heatsink here for the M.2, and I'll show you guys how to install it on this one. One of the things that you have to do when you have an M.2 that's already installed, there is a paste that basically once it gets heated up, it will kind of stick to the M.2. So you have to be kind of careful because this heatsink is actually going to stick to it. So what you're going to want to do is kind of pull back and then lift. As you can see here, the M.2 SSD is basically sticking to the heatsink or the shield here. You're not going to want to pull it and kind of pry it. You're going to want to just slide it up, and then it will, you can see it will release itself. So the last thing you want to do is put any pressure on your M.2 SSD. You just want to kind of, you know, slide it in a twist motion. You don't want to pry it apart. You just want to kind of twist. This is my 500 gig 970 Evo, so I'm going to be using that, and then we'll bring in the new board. So like I said earlier, you cannot do anything until you remove this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a screw right here underneath of it. You can see the fan. Now I'm hoping that fan lasts a long time. It does look like if you did have to replace it, you could maybe order one from ASUS. It has 3 screws here. For your M.2 slot, now you can see you can access that screw and this screw. So I'll just go ahead and remove this one. Same for this over here, we'll get it loose. And then this one, we'll just, like I said, slide it up. All right, so from here, we'll pop in the M.2. Now you're gonna wanna go at this at like about a 45-degree angle. You don't wanna go straight in with it. When we were doing the unboxing, we did have, if you guys remember, we had this little bag of screws here. And basically that's for this situation where your M.2 may not extend out to the point here to where it can be screwed down. You do have these little standoffs. I know that's gonna be extremely hard to see, but you do have a standoff. And what you do is you will screw that in right to the piece here. And basically what that allows you to do is screw your M.2 down so that, you know, it's not relying on basically the heatsink to do that for you. So what we'll do is now we can tie the M.2 down with one of the screws that comes with it. And that's good to go. Now we're ready to basically reinstall the shield. Now there's going to be plastic on the back of this. You want to remove this blue film before you install the M.2, or else it will definitely cause your M.2 to overheat. Once the film is removed, reinstall the shield or the heatsink that goes on top of it. And once that's good and secure, then you can go ahead and tie the other end down. We're good. M.2 is installed. And then you go ahead and reinstall this piece. Now hopefully this is the only time that I have to worry about dealing with this. I don't want to have to take this off and replace this fan anytime soon. So I'm hoping that this is basically the only time I have to worry about this unless I go and install another M.2 drive. Now we have the big boy. It is the 5900X. So that's what we're going to install next. Here we go. But you do want to be extremely careful with, like, say, an AMD processor, because it does have the pins on the bottom. It's not like the Intel processor where the pins are built into the motherboard. There's the Ryzen processor. So for the AMD socket, you're going to match up the arrow that's on the CPU with the arrow that is on the socket, okay? So when you're installing that, that's how you're going to do that. The arrow is here. The arrow is on this corner here. I don't know if you can really see it, but there's a little gold arrow here. So all we're going to do is match those up like that, and then you will close it, and then you're good. Next up is going to be memory. Now for this particular build, I went with the Trident Z from G-Skill. Now obviously this is specifically for the AMD Ryzen, so we're not going to have hopefully any type of compatibility issues or anything like that. Okay, so for ASUS motherboards, you're always going to use your B2 and A2 memory slots, okay? So you have B1, A1, and then your B2, A2. So if you're only using 2 sticks of RAM, which in this case I am, then you're going to use your B2 and your A2. There's many different ways that you can apply thermal paste, but basically you're just going to put like a pea-sized amount of thermal paste, about like so. Now what I'm using is the Noctua NT-H1. Very good stuff. It's non-conductive. I've been using Noctua thermal paste pretty much ever since I've been building PCs, and it's always worked really, really well. CPU is installed, M.2 SSD RAM, and we even have our thermal paste applied, so I'm going to clean up the old thermal paste and then get this installed, and then hopefully we'll boot up and see what we got. One reason why this is going to be an easy upgrade and an easy transition is because I'm using another ASUS board, so a lot of the connection points and all of that are pretty much the same. Now I have run into a problem for my CPU power. I only have 4 pin here, so that's going to basically do this portion, but I'm going to have to find another connector or another adapter that I can run to another 4 pin, so I may have to buy another cable mod cable. Pretty much the rest of this is just going to be connecting all the cables, and when I'm finished with that, then I'll bring you guys back in and give you the verdict whether we have a successful boot or not. Alright guys, so that wraps up my video of the unboxing of the ASUS ROG STRIX X570-E gaming motherboard. Now we also did a few other things to go along with this video. Showed you how to install the M.2 SSD, and we also did the CPU install. What I'm going to do now is go through and do some benchmarks and kind of come back with another video and let you all know how well the 5900X performs, and I may even do some type of overclock. I'm really not sure about that yet. But the good thing to know about this board, and maybe a lot of other boards, is now they are currently ready for the Ryzen 5000 series CPUs, so that's great. You do not have to do any type of BIOS update out of the box, which is something I was going to do and make a video on, but it turns out that as soon as I got it booted up, everything was fine and that it recognizes the CPU, so that's awesome. If you happen to like this video, make sure you hit that like button on your way out. It really helps my channel. If you guys have any comments or questions about this motherboard, feel free. Go ahead and leave those in the comment section below. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I'll see you all in the next video.